Fix this, and I'll give you my mansion," mocked the CEO, but the Black Maid's prodigy son did it. Preston. Wells's voice cut through the conference room like a blade, sharp and humiliating, as he ordered Rosa Thompson to step closer. She held a tray against her chest, trying to stay invisible, but Preston made sure everyone noticed her trembling hands. His shattered smartphone lay on the polished table, its screen ripped apart as if it had been crushed in rage. With a careless flick, Preston tossed it toward her, letting it skid past her feet. The executives burst into laughter, enjoying a show they had witnessed too many times. Rosa did not move. Her eyes lowered, her breath held, her dignity slipping away in front of people who never saw her as more than a shadow. Then Preston shifted his attention to Malik Thompson, standing quietly behind his mother. Malik's shoulders stiffened as Preston smirked and said the words that froze the room. "Fix this, and the mansion is yours." Another wave of laughter erupted. The challenge sounded like a joke meant to break a poor family, not a promise meant to be honored. Rosa whispered for Malik to ignore it, but he stepped forward anyway. He knelt, lifted the destroyed phone, and examined it with a calmness that unsettled the room. A moment of silence followed, brief but heavy. Before the tension could snap, a soft reminder slipped in. If stories where power flips interest you, remember to like the video and subscribe so you never miss one. Malik rose slowly, gripping the broken phone, ready to turn humiliation into something far more dangerous. Malik turned the ruined phone over in his hands, the shattered glass leaving small cuts across his fingers, yet he did not flinch. Preston leaned back in his leather chair with a mocking grin, tapping his pen like he was watching an amusing performance. His voice carried across the room, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Take your time, boy. Maybe you can turn dust into gold while you are at it." Whispers started immediately. Executives leaned toward each other, trading comments they believed Malik could not hear. Words about kids like him, about knowing their place, about how Rosa should be grateful she even had a job. Each remark sliced through the air like poison darts, and Rosa felt every one of them. Her hand trembled as she reached for her son's arm, begging him under her breath to stop before things escalated. Malik gently pulled away. His eyes stayed fixed on the internal wiring of the phone, but his mind was on something else entirely. This was not about a mansion. This was about the way his mother had been treated for years. The way people like Preston believed they could crush someone's dignity without consequence. Preston stood up, enjoying the attention as he raised his voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, consider this an official bet. If this boy fixes my phone, the mansion is his. If he fails, his mother learns what real consequences look like." A hush spread across the room, every pair of eyes locked on Malik. This was no longer idle mockery. This was a public challenge, a moment every witness would remember, and Malik understood backing down was no longer an option. Malik placed Preston's shattered phone on the table, ignoring the sharp edges cutting into his hands as he pulled out the tiny repair kit he always carried in his backpack. Rosa froze when she saw it. She knew this was something he loved doing, but she also knew how dangerous this moment was. One wrong move, one small spark, and Preston would turn this into a punishment she could not protect him from. Malik opened the back panel and exposed the damage. The motherboard was cracked in 2 places, several wires were torn, and the battery was bent from pressure. It looked impossible to fix. The executives smirked, whispering again, expecting Malik to panic or give up. Preston crossed his arms and stepped closer, towering over Malik with a cruel smile. "You can walk away, you know?" Preston said. "All you have to do is admit you made a mistake by stepping forward." Malik did not respond. His hands were steady as he lifted the broken circuits and inspected each component. A few executives leaned in, curious despite themselves. Rebecca Lang kept shifting her weight from one foot to the other, chewing her lip. Jason Mendez stood beside her with his arms folded, his eyes fixed on the boy working in silence. Malik pulled 2 thin copper strips from an old spare wire inside his kit. He heated them, using a small portable soldering tool, then carefully bridged the broken lines on the board. Every movement was slow, deliberate, and confident, and that confidence began to unsettle the room. Preston clicked his tongue. "Look at him," he said loudly, acting like a little hero, as if talent can erase who he is. Rebecca glanced sharply at him, but she kept quiet. The tension felt thick enough to choke on. Malik reconnected the power line, but as soon as he pressed it down, a tiny spark shot out. The executives gasped, some stepping back. Rosa let out a small cry, covering her mouth, terrified he had hurt himself. Malik stayed calm, examining the part again, understanding the spark was caused by a short connection. He adjusted the wire, clipped an extra piece, and placed protective tape over a fragile spot. Jason whispered to Rebecca, "How is he doing that without proper tools?" Rebecca shook her head slowly. "This is not normal. He knows exactly what he is doing." Malik moved on to the battery, carefully bending the metal back into shape. It was dangerous, but he had done it before on worse phones. Preston watched him patiently, and the smile on his face faltered for the first time. Malik inserted the battery, connected the power cable, and tapped the internal reset switch. Nothing happened. A soft ripple of relief spread across the room. Preston let out a short laugh. There it is. Reality finally caught up. Rosa's shoulders slumped. Malik did not react. Instead, He reopened the casing and inspected the lower board again. He found a tiny burned fuse near the charging port and pulled out a micro spare from his kit. He clipped it into place with tweezers and secured it with another heated wire. He closed the phone again and connected it to his small power bank. The first second was silent. The second felt longer. Then a faint vibration buzzed under Malik's fingertips. The executives stiffened. Preston's eyes widened. Rosa took a step forward, tears forming. The cracked screen flickered once, then glowed with a broken but unmistakable light. The company logo appeared faintly through the shattered glass. A wave of shock paralyzed the room. Rebecca covered her mouth. Jason stared in disbelief. Several executives exchanged nervous glances, suddenly unsure of their earlier jokes. The buzzing grew steady, and the phone fully powered on. Malik handed it to Preston without looking up. For a long moment, Preston did not move. His jaw tightened, his fingers trembling slightly as he reached for the restored phone. He tried to keep his expression neutral, but the defeat in his eyes was impossible to hide. His smile was gone. His confidence was slipping, and the room had changed. Every witness had seen what he never expected. The boy he tried to humiliate had just done the impossible. The room fell silent when the phone lit up in Malik's hand, but what he did next froze everyone even more. Malik stood up slowly, holding the repaired phone like a mirror to Preston's face. "Before I fixed it," Malik said calmly, "I pressed one button." Preston frowned. "What button?" Malik played the audio. Preston's own voice filled the boardroom. "Fix this, and the mansion is yours. Let everyone watch him fail." The executives gasped. A few covered their mouths. Others stepped back, as if the confession itself burned the air. Rebecca Lang looked at Jason Mendez, whispering, "This is bad, really bad." Jason nodded. "He made it a public bet. He cannot walk away from this." Preston's eyes widened. "You recorded me. You had no right. You gave me every right." Malik replied quietly. "You said it in front of everyone, and now everyone has heard it again." The room shifted. For the first time, the power moved away from Preston. Rosa stepped forward, her voice steady even though her hands trembled. "I remember what you told me 15 years ago," she said. "Every insult, every threat, every time you tried to push me out because I did not look like the people you want in this company." Executives exchanged nervous looks. They had heard rumors, but now they were hearing her truth. And then, the boardroom doors opened. Andre Thompson walked in. Firm, dressed in a simple suit that somehow carried more authority than Preston's entire empire. He placed a thick folder on the glass table. "Good afternoon," Andre said. "I believe you will want to see this. It is every discriminatory action taken in this building for the past decade. Documented, dated, and supported by witnesses." Preston's face went pale. "And who are you?" Preston asked, trying to sound strong, but his voice cracked. Andre stepped closer, meeting his eyes without fear. "I am Rosa's husband, and I did not raise my voice. I raise evidence." The executives leaned forward, staring at the folder like it was a ticking bomb. Preston tried to laugh, but the sound broke halfway. "You think this will scare me? I control this company." Andre shook his head. "You controlled a room with fear," he said softly, "but fear disappears the moment truth enters the room." Malik stood beside his parents, now silent, confident, unshaken, and for the first time in his life, Preston Wells felt the ground under him begin to slip. For a long moment, nobody moved. The weight of Andre's folder sat in the center of the boardroom table like a silent storm waiting to break. Then Andre opened it. He slid the first document forward. "Here is a memo from 12 years ago," he said calmly. Preston recommended Rosa for termination because she did not fit the company image. There was no performance issue, only appearance. A few executives lowered their eyes. They remembered that memo. Andre placed a second document on the table. "This one shows how Preston denied promotions to employees who came from minority backgrounds. Look at the pattern. Same excuse every time." Preston swallowed hard. "That proves nothing." Andre lifted a USB drive. "This contains internal emails. And trust me, it proves everything." The room tightened. He connected the drive to the boardroom screen. Email after email appeared, Preston mocking employees, dismissing their concerns, and speaking with arrogance that crossed every professional line. Executives stepped back from him, as if his shadow could stain them. Rebecca Lang's face turned pale. "I knew he created a toxic culture," she whispered, "but I did not know it was this deep." Jason Mendez looked torn, sweat forming on his forehead, but the escalation was not over. Malik stepped forward, holding the repaired phone. "And this," he said, "is from the internal logs of your device. You forgot something, Preston. Modern phones keep more than messages." He tapped the screen. A hidden folder opened, filled with screenshots, private deals, inappropriate conversations, and unethical approvals Preston had signed without board permission. The executives gasped. Malik continued, his voice steady. "You used company funds to host private events. You approved deals that violated internal policy. You intimidated employees who questioned you, and you used this phone to control everything." One executive whispered, "This is enough for a full investigation, maybe even criminal." Preston snapped, "You have no right to go through my phone." Malik met his eyes. "You threw it at me. You made it a public challenge. You said the mansion was mine if I fixed it, and I did. Rebecca Lang suddenly stepped forward. I am confirming something, she said, her voice firm for the first time. Preston has been a problem for years. He silenced anyone who tried to speak up. He punished those who did not agree with him. I watched him do it, and I regret not stopping him. Her words hit the room like thunder. Jason Mendez looked at Preston, then at the Thompson family. His jaw tightened. I cannot stay silent anymore, he said. Everything they are saying is true. I have seen him threaten employees. I have seen him bend rules. I have seen him cover his tracks. Preston stared at him in disbelief. Jason, after everything I did for you? Jason stepped back. You did nothing for me. You only used me. Momentum shifted fully, completely, undeniably toward Malik's family. Executives whispered to each other in panic. Audit, inquiry, removal, lawsuit. The air carried only one truth. Now Preston Wells was falling, and the evidence wave was swallowing everything he once controlled. The silence in the boardroom was shattered by the sudden sound of cameras clicking and microphones being set up. Tasha Brooks and her news crew stepped inside, eyes sharp, recording everything. Preston's confident posture faltered the moment he saw the cameras. He straightened his expensive suit, trying to reclaim composure, but it was already too late. Andre Thompson stepped aside to let Tasha approach, his calm presence radiating authority. This is public now, Andre said quietly. Everyone is watching. Malik stood beside his mother, holding the phone like a shield. His eyes scanned the room, unwavering, as if saying, the truth will no longer be hidden. Tasha began filming, her voice professional but piercing. Preston Wells, the CEO of Wells Industries, has been publicly accused of systematic discrimination and unethical practices by his own employees and now documented by evidence from inside this company. Can you respond? Preston opened his mouth, but no words came out. The executives in the room avoided eye contact, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Daniel Ruiz and his legal team entered quietly, walking straight to Preston. Without hesitation, Daniel placed a thick envelope in front of him. Preston Wells, he said, voice firm, this is a subpoena. You are being served officially in front of witnesses, both private and public, regarding multiple claims of workplace discrimination and fraud. Preston's face turned a shade paler than the office walls. His mouth moved, but only whispers came out. This cannot be. Malik's.com presence made the scene even more unbearable for Preston. The teenager who had once quietly picked up a broken phone now stood as a catalyst for justice. Every inch of Preston's carefully controlled world was unraveling before his eyes. Rosa Thompson, standing tall despite years of forced humility, smiled faintly. She no longer carried cleaning supplies. Instead, she carried dignity earned through endurance and patience. 15 years of humiliation and whispered slurs had built a foundation of observation, memory, and resilience. The news cameras recorded every expression, every subtle glance, every faltering step of a man who had believed his power was absolute. The story was no longer confined to the walls of the office. It was about to reach households, screens, and communities across the city. Malik finally spoke, his voice calm but steady. Preston Wells, you made a promise in front of witnesses. Today, everyone is seeing that your actions have consequences. My family's dignity is non-negotiable. Andre leaned forward, pointing to the evidence folder. Every discriminatory decision, every unethical action, every deliberate violation of rights, it is documented, and it is public. The law is on our side. Preston's hands shook as he looked at the camera lens. For the first time in his career, the empire he had built through fear and manipulation felt fragile. Every person in the room could see it. Every viewer at home could feel it. Tasha Brooks stepped closer, microphone extended. The evidence, the witnesses, and the legal action. It is all happening right here, right now. What will you say to the public, Mr. Wells? Malik's eyes met Preston's. No fear, no hesitation, only quiet confidence. The broken power dynamic had been reversed completely. As the camera zoomed in, Preston realized he no longer controlled the narrative. Every smirk, every insult, every dismissive action had been recorded, remembered, and exposed. The boardroom, once Preston's domain of dominance, had become a stage where truth reigned supreme. Malik, Rosa, and Andre stood united, unshakable, and victorious, while Preston Wells, the man who mocked a Maid's son, had become the subject of a story that would not be forgotten. Outside, the city lights reflected on the glass walls. Cameras captured the Thompson family, leaving with heads held high, their future full of possibility. Preston remained inside, alone, facing the consequences of years of arrogance and cruelty. The news spread like wildfire. Within days, hundreds of former and current employees stepped forward, joining the class action lawsuit against Preston Wells's corporation. Each testimony added weight, each document reinforced the truth. The magnitude of the injustice became undeniable. Malik Thompson watched calmly as his father Andre coordinated with lawyers to ensure that every piece of evidence was presented in court. Rosa stood beside them, pride shining in her eyes. The same office that had humiliated her for 15 years had now become a symbol of justice. Preston's shares plummeted on the stock market. Investors withdrew, contracts were canceled, and partnerships dissolved overnight. The empire he had built with arrogance and manipulation began collapsing piece by piece. Every headline carried the story of his downfall. The media documented the systematic discrimination, unethical practices, and deliberate marginalization of employees based on race and social background. Preston had become a cautionary tale in real time. The court proceedings were relentless. Andre Thompson presented evidence collected over years, including emails, internal memos, testimonies, and recordings. Each revelation forced Preston to face the reality he had ignored for so long. His attempts to defend himself sounded hollow against the overwhelming proof. Malik's quiet intelligence continued to impress everyone. The same teenager who had fixed a destroyed phone was now at the center of a story that exposed one of the city's most powerful businessmen. The mansion Preston had promised, once a mocking jest, was now legally bound to the Thompson family. Emotionally, the victory was profound. Rosa finally reclaimed her dignity. She had endured humiliation, condescension, and casual prejudice for 15 years. But now she stood with her family, respected and vindicated. Malik, 17 now, felt the weight of justice realized not through vengeance, but through persistence and integrity. Preston's personal life crumbled alongside his business. Friends and colleagues distanced themselves. Former allies whispered about the empire lost to arrogance. The mansion he had mocked became a symbol of accountability, a testament to promises kept and truths revealed. The settlement numbers grew, ultimately reaching hundreds of millions. It was not only a financial reckoning but also a societal one. The case set a precedent, reminding everyone that systemic discrimination could not remain hidden forever. From the chaos, a new order emerged. The Thompson family, once underestimated and dismissed, now held power not for personal gain but to create opportunities for others. The mansion became more than a property. It was transformed into a community center, an educational space dedicated to empowering young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. Preston Wells, alone in his rented apartment, watched the news coverage with disbelief. The arrogance that had once protected him had now become his undoing. Every insult, every act of belittlement, every attempt to humiliate others had been recorded in the court of public opinion and law. Malik smiled quietly. He knew this was only the beginning of a journey where knowledge, courage, and integrity could turn even the darkest experiences into instruments of change. The power dynamic had shifted forever. Preston Wells had learned the hard way: mocking others, underestimating them, and abusing power comes at an unpayable price. Outside, the Thompson family stood together at the opening of the new educational center. Cameras flashed, voices cheered, and the community celebrated. Justice had arrived, not through rage, but through determination, wisdom, and unity. The world was watching, learning, and remembering that even the most despised voices, when armed with courage and truth, could change history. Malik Thompson had shown that intelligence, patience, and moral strength were forces that no arrogance could ever overcome. Malik Thompson and his family finally moved into the mansion, now legally theirs as part of the settlement terms. The halls that once symbolized Preston Wells's arrogance and cruelty were transformed into spaces of hope and learning. Classrooms, libraries, and technology labs were set up, designed to empower underprivileged youth who had never imagined such opportunities. Rosa Thompson walked through the mansion with pride, her head held high. 15 years of humiliation, dismissals, and racist remarks had been replaced by respect and recognition. She now stood not only as a mother and caretaker but as a leader in a community that valued her courage and resilience. Malik's brilliance continued to shine. At 17, he received offers from the country's best universities, all with full scholarships. His quiet intelligence, combined with years of observing injustice and overcoming obstacles, had prepared him to step into a future full of promise. Every success he achieved became a beacon for others who had been overlooked or underestimated. Andre Thompson led initiatives through the new center, teaching workers how to identify, challenge, and prevent workplace discrimination. His experience as a labor lawyer, combined with the lessons learned through his family's journey, created programs that would protect countless others from the injustices that once oppressed them. Preston Wells, by contrast, disappeared from the corporate world. Bankrupt, humbled, and largely forgotten, he became a cautionary tale for those who believed power could shield them from accountability. Every decision, every insult, and every act of condescension he had made was now part of a story the city would not forget. The mansion, once a symbol of arrogance, had become a center for hope, learning, and empowerment. Humiliation had been replaced by justice, cruelty by compassion, and oppression by opportunity. The Thompson family had not only reclaimed what was rightfully theirs, they had created a legacy that would inspire generations to come. Malik stood beside his mother and father at the opening of the educational center. Cameras flashed, voices cheered, and the community celebrated together. In that moment, it was clear. True power lies not in wealth or arrogance, but in knowledge, courage, and the ability to transform injustice into opportunity. The story ended with dignity restored, lives changed, and a clear message. Those who underestimate others often end up witnessing the very justice they tried to avoid. The Thompson family stood together, watching as the first students walked through the mansion's transformed halls. Every smile, every laugh, and every spark of curiosity reminded them that the battles they had faced were not in vain. Justice had been served, dignity restored, and a legacy begun that would inspire countless others. Malik turned to his parents, a quiet satisfaction in his eyes. The mansion was no longer just a home, it was a symbol of courage, intelligence, and resilience, overcoming arrogance and prejudice. Rosa and Andre exchanged proud glances, knowing their perseverance had created something far greater than they had ever imagined. And as the sun set over the city, casting golden light across the building, the story of the Thompson family stood as a reminder. No act of cruelty is ever without consequence, and true strength is measured by the ability to rise, transform, and empower others. If this story moved you, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you do not miss more real-life inspired tales of courage, justice, and unexpected triumph. Every story celebrates the power of determination and the strength to turn challenges into victories.